when I became aware of the 5D collective, I was in, I think, my 27-ish, something like that, or 28-ish. But I remember that it was my root chakra that had gotten activated, and I came across a website that I to this day have, and it gave me the whole timeline, and so I was very familiar with it. In fact, also my first download was It's Your Human Makeup, and I knew also that those of God, Holy Spirit, and Jesus from yesterday's news would not be welcoming of all of us, as they didn't welcome tarot, they don't welcome Akashic record readers, they don't welcome Reiki, they continue to not welcome the ones who bring all of it together, Anima Mundi. So that is something that I wasn't surprised about, because I've read history books, I have been in college, I know all about the human elements, so social sciences, humanities, psychology, philosophy, and the fact is that anyone who will have learned political science and international relations and diplomacy will not be surprised at that which is ignorance. And so it's not bliss. It's only bliss for those who are closed-minded, and we don't really hang out with that. But we'll respect them, okay? So I'm getting clairs, and I am already doing mindfulness without even knowing it, and mindsight skills, because I can sift through my sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. Oh, if you're new, those of us who are true spirituality, and at least here at IHP and the Christ consciousness, yes, we are our true selves, and we anchor in ventral. It's why we have the pure consciousness incarnate. It's called unconditional love. So you're a restorative, embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating person. It means you take trauma healing completely seriously, and if you're not a securely attached person, you go to therapy first, and then you will be a whole self. So your higher self leads you. That's where I'm at. That's why the integrated brain, pure consciousness, I'm actually talking about a state of the flow. Neuroscientists can talk to you about it. A whole self, I have a bunch of courses that I learn from about attachment trauma. So Dr. Daniel Siegel talks to me about the integrated brain and the whole self being dynamic, because it's a verb. And thanks to integration, Maria's personality patterns and her attachment category and her temperament don't impact me when I'm in my awareness. So focusing attention in the state of awareness is when maximum uncertainty arises, and kind intention automatically. Yes, I am going to accept myself as crooked with no shame. I have integrity because I'm an empowered inner child who doesn't protect Maria and doesn't have shame. My mother also taught me self-respect. So I delight and I accept me the way I am, and God and I will have a chit chat if ever I need to chit chat to take me as I am. And that's because I am flawed and imperfect, and I unconditionally love me. So with integrity, I say you welcome me and you allow me to be every single bit of all that I am. And here's why: when you move into having clairs, you don't think that people are right about you, and that you are an evil bitch or an evil witch, or because you're polyamory that you're a whore or a masochist or somebody who is unfaithful or knows nothing about commitment or integrity or anything. Okay, so people who don't understand what it is to be in a grown-up, is what I call the functional adult with the inner child brain, are people who need Terry Real, so that they can get out of their lack of self-acceptance of being crooked. So when people don't know that defective shame people like to go pointing their fingers around, we do. And again, my mother taught me how to be polite and to allow myself to disengage from those rude-mannered grown-ups or whoever they may be, because they have no manners. And the equanimous neutral stance is what leaders hold, because again, those are the wise ones. So pure consciousness incarnate, when you look into it, I read you this passage. The term pure consciousness incarnate appears in multiple belief systems, including Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, and Christianity. It refers to a state of being that is beyond the physical world and can be considered divine. We don't have to use the word divine, because neuroscientists explain to you what the flow state is. And again, I can explain it to you too, because embodying pure consciousness means I use discernment. And that when I am charged, I know what's happening and I can take ownership because I self-regulate as a master of Maria's mental, emotional, and physical plane, because really, if you don't know how to master your mental and emotional activity, you're like the Zen master of laundry. 3D, 4D, when ascension energies come up, they are overwhelmed because they don't window of welcome their emotions, and that's because they don't do a prefrontal cortex workout, because they don't know how to be a whole self, because they're not a higher self yet. And that's the part of why you'll see them getting more rigid, which makes them not look in any way, shape, or form appealing to those of us who expand consciousness. When I meet discerning minds, I love it. They talk to me about polyamory, monoamory, with curiosity, openness, acceptance. They talk to me about people who commit to their marriage and or their partnerships with their capacity to communicate to each other authentically with compersion. I'm going to be happy that you're happy. You're going to be happy that I'm happy, because that's what it's called, to be self-regulating in a ventral vagal. It's not hard, and it's also not hard to know what forgiveness is, because again, I'm flawed, you're flawed. I won't be in my sympathetic as I'm engaging with you, because there's no need for it. The practice, you put your prefrontal cortex into practice as you're being interacted with others in your own relational field. And so when Claire's came about, I didn't have anyone with attachment trauma information, and I only had stories from the 4D spectrum, which I totally was like, okay, they're off. But if you go to any of those past podcasts on Spotify, you'll hear very different ways that I talked about moments of expansion. And for this episode, though, the story I really want to share is the breaking free from the fourth dimension bandwidth, because it's as Patrick McNamara explains, when the decentralization of the self takes place. But because the 5D body type is of a person, again, who has a higher self, so I have non-traumatized Maria, I regulate in my ventral, I'm mindfully aware, I have mindset skills because I can sift sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. Mindset is the inner growth one that we talk about, so I'm in neutrality, and I have duality, which is why I navigate a surfboard, no peaks. So this is happening in a series of 1, 2, 3, and it's actively image, 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 with, they each have emotion, 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 and I conclude with a laugh as I am chit-chatting with God, by the way, and the different emotional states were varied, but they consistently brought me to realize the futility of the moment, and it was done. And when I hear again Patrick McNamara's explanation of decentralization of the self and how our human species evolved, I'm like, yeah, we're still evolving that way. So for me, consistently, I've embodied light body, rainbow body. My mind and my brain and my embodied Maria continue to integrate and be that restorative embodiment. So it's no confusion when you're navigating the different planes, different densities. When I have downloads, when I am giving an Akashic record reading, when I am doing a Reiki session, and when I am in any way, shape, or form with any of that, which is, again, intuitiveness, clears. The picking up of our oversoul, that one is very fun. No energy vampires, dark auras. I have had people in my sphere trying to take information. This one was funny because I was completely... like, you got to be fucking shitting me. But I had seen a human being in pseudo-aliveness, which means they need a therapist, talk to me in a way that made me think of El Dorado and think that mental warfare is an actual real deal. And that's where you'll find the 4D collective, because I'm like, El Dorado, watch it. He was like, there's no person that's ever been in my sphere that has made me feel that they could actively disrupt what's going on. No, it was more like, get the fuck out of my space. What are you doing? Because I'm a Reiki master and an Akashic record reader, I know the energetic imprint. So you'll have one, I'll have one. And that's why when I perceive people in my sphere, I know who they are. But I will also treat it like I'm just, randomly doing shit because that's how it feels. I'm like, okay, you got to be fucking kidding me. Oh, and also I learned how not to address this with any of these individuals, because these individuals are not expanding. They're actively disrupted in their feels, not doing anything about it. And I thank my entire oversoul for helping me to learn how to be able and just allow me to not engage with people who are not taking, going to therapy, getting their inner child online and reparented, and essentially getting out of that human suffering that is their 0 1 year old, 3 to 7 year old, their freeze, their 11, 12, and 14, 15, 16. So all of their child parts continue to suffer while they continue to think they're living life. Now, the experiences are not destabilizing because, again, I am being my true self, because I don't hide myself behind a mask. I don't have trauma in this way. I have emotions. That's what I have. So I'll talk about them easily. And here's where, when you learn what traumatized individuals often wear, it's a mask. That's their past self. And they need to feel safe enough to bring down the mask, but it has to be also at a pace that they feel comfortable. But they also have to have the psych education. So to know that shame is about vision, that shame is about being seen or about not wanting to be seen. So that one's Bessel van der Kolk. The other one I paraphrased is Ruth Lanius, MD. When you meet the individual who doesn't trust in Bessel van der Kolk, trauma is not a story of something that happened in the past. It is the imprint that all experiences leave on your soul and your body as your sensations. Okay, so when you have the ones who disregard noticing that rigidity and unforgiveness, and that it's hard work, and that I have to prove myself because I must shame myself, you just allow yourself to know that only they can hold their own self with self-acceptance, compassion, and realize you, like I, am defective. And that means we're both sinners and flawed. However, we are both here as people who can bring forth the best foot forward. And it's the sensation of I need to work that is what gets completely dissolved when the person is able to give themselves the psych education. That's why integration, there's 9 domains as Dr. Daniel Siegel presents, and the one of shame and defectiveness is the 0 1 year old and sometimes the 3 to 7 year old. Then you have exiles, protectors. That's why Schwartz talks to you about if you're leading with your higher self, great, because you don't have as many exiles or protectors. And what I'm going to say is, if you're an aware, accountable, regulating person and you enjoy integrity, you are a person who enjoys differences. So you don't judge, again, a polyamory, monoamory, a person who has those political views or those religious views. You don't have, you're confusing shit. You are able to talk about all topics that right now, for those who are not equanimous, they get into their fists, okay? Take me as I am. The sentence is, I would, where are you? Despite my faults. Take me as I am despite my faults. And the prayer also includes, summon out what I shall be and set your seal upon my heart. You are able to embody that heaven in the body, the kingdom of God, when you have self-love and self-compassion and self-acceptance. And so the 5D collective, we move into Christ consciousness and the embodiment of pure consciousness, incarnate in the sense of being, again, humanly speaking, that human translator. I'm the self-help human translator right now, bringing human spiritual and spirituality. You don't need to talk about it as divinity, because not all people, one, are of faith, but also that way we can try to respect those who don't understand what being yourself mindfully in a state of compassion means, and why we don't need to be casting stones and shaming people for their different lifestyle choices, including pronouns, because I will show up as a person that is a member of society that has goodness, okay? So the prayer expresses the idea that God has gifted people with potential for good, and that God will call on those possibilities for growth and spiritual formation when you have kindness within you, which is only going to be present if you have a healed inner child. The ones who deny, the trauma experts, let me give you this for a minute, because this is where my contribution is going to be essential for how I know those who are in the idea that they're smart. Oh, the only reason 7 to 14 are considered charming are because we have a bunch of non-securely attached adaptive child people out there. My ears will recognize the tone and the face and the manners my mom showed me, which is where come to me, shame on them. And remember, people in power or in positions, they try to do shit like this. She doesn't curse. She made me aware of what people do when they try to wield their words. And I only answer to one God, and it's not a human in flesh. And I will recognize their tone, their arrogant tone, and it ain't Lucifer. It's a person who needs a therapist who's cognitive dissonance, structural dissociation, and is in the room. They will only see a neutral stare, and a person who's 4'9" who will stand down. And the minute you try to have me interact with you, if you're a stranger, I will not be interacting with you that much. If you're a loved one, it depends what you're doing and how it's going. Worst case scenario, you get me to cry. That's about it. I will not be getting angry in your face because that's not how it works. I don't correct you. Again, I'm not God, not perfect. Don't plan to be, and don't plan to play God either, because that's actually something disrespectful. You stay very committed to that which you will have learned if you're a person who stayed connected to your inner child with decency, self-respect, and knowing what shame sounds like because of a human being called parent teaching you they're bad, disrespectful, they, not you, and you come to me. And as a grown-up with all the smart therapists, that's exactly why those who wield their words and tell you there's lack of imagination for evil, or tell you that it's not inherently enlightening or healthy to be non-reactive, are the very same individuals who are committed to their performance. And they are not healing. And they are there for the collective of individuals who are from 1 to 24, that scale of Michael Stone, the evil one, and the 7 to 14 charming are Peter Pans who have Wendy as their source, and who in fact don't know what it means to be grounded in reality, because they don't actually know that if you're grounded in reality, you are supposed to be able to, let me go grab the quote, this one is a really good one, because if you are a person of school, then you will know what this person says, and it might not be in this one. It might be here. I have a bunch of different great smart human beings out there. Sam Harris, if your beliefs are not falsifiable, if there's no scenario that could convince you that your most cherished opinions are in error, then that's proof that you didn't get them by being in contact with reality. When you see flat earthers, they isolate themselves because they don't want to be around other people, because they are committed, but they're committed in a way also of not enjoying anymore expanding intellectual conversations when it comes to God or ascension and everything that is related to spirituality community. When I hear somebody saying, we're going to prove it, I'm like, you don't realize that scientists, the true ones, know that 97% of what is out there is unavailable for them to be discovered and knowing, but that they also know what quantitative data analysis is and how much of that needs to be brought forth. So a smart brain of any human being will know discernment and expansion and will not be picking at something and creating a small conversation out of it. And if somebody does begin to do that again, excuse me, you're confusing science spirituality at the third time. I'm just curious because I don't know what you're going to say, because I'm not you. And actually, I really want to know because you're a piece of consciousness. So I want my brother or sister or they, the sibling to tell me their thoughts, because I'm a person who's not offended by the lack of your capacity to understand that I do know what I'm talking about. I'm not even concerned with it because I'm not caring that you don't hear what I'm saying. I see Maria myself. So again, it's a certain tone of voice can be reminding of a familiar person in your past who might be a wonderful cue of safety or might be a cue of danger. Deb Dana, LCSW. And funny thing, this person recognized my voice because we had met the year prior. So ascension energies, what I had noticed and what I still know is they bring up all that is meant to be witnessed and observed and processed by the person who owns the bilaterally integrated brain, and that's because that's the only person who's going to take ownership with the psych education. So by acknowledging I'm flawed, you're flawed, but I have integrity, you have integrity, and that our promises are those that involve our word, that is those men and women and theys who are professionals, and I've seen them of different expertise, of different professions as well. So some are researchers, academics, sciences. Others are like me, doing this and that, content creation, online entrepreneurship, and the life coach, mindset coach, all of it. Okay, and then we have our even more traditional roles. So you can bring them all in. There's two groups. There's the ones who understand that you will be a self-agent, independent thinker, and a very amazing higher potential of you when you have the inner child adult of you. So going to therapy with a Patrick Chan or Terry Real so that you can, whenever it is time, maybe you forgive your parents, maybe not, but that's the part. Recognizing that that is the journey of some people is what the 3D, 4D don't acknowledge. And so they will continue to say that being a person who embodies compassion is wrong. Being a person who loves yourself first is wrong because they don't understand how those words are applicable with the embodied brain. And they refuse to get informed. And even when they do, they like to call it lack of imagination for evil. Or they like to twist data, like I've seen this one lady do. See, the spectrum, it proves narcissists aren't healable. I'm like, you obviously don't know Dr. Daniel Fox, Bessel van der Kolk, Janina Fisher, or a bunch more, but my colleagues are all against me. The minute you notice how they're going to say, my group, that's all you need. That's all I need. When I'm no, and really it's pretty clear. Again, the voice gives it away, and that's why I'm using it. They will easily take information. I'm pseudoscience woo-woo, so that's really straightforward. But they will also take good, valid, great information from people like a Dr. Daniel Siegel, and they will twist and tell you, which is where those who talk to you about mental warfare or psychological warfare, these are the individuals who bring this up. What I can tell you, and then we'll close on out and we'll do this again, is as a teenager I said, I'm not manipulable. And the only people who could, I know exactly who they are. And it's only because I will allow myself to trust what they're speaking to me. That's why. Now, obviously, if I am not in the presence of you, and what I mean is we can all be manipulable by strangers. So this is where it's a very in-depth topic. But my point was that you are not absent of awareness of consciously choosing certain things. And so for me, I can be, because I am inclined to be trusting, I can be manipulated by someone in a way of them being able to sell me a good story, which is why I will have those who I go and trust that will tell me, okay, let's look at it this way. Okay, so you always have around you those who are going to bring the opposite of what you lead with, and vice versa. But the ones who try to make you afraid of information is what I was trying to get to. The ones who try to tell people that the therapists that are talking about being in a physiological state of compassion are bad. They all have the same shit to say, and they all don't actually notice. They don't accept with ease that they have flaws. They have shame. It's unfortunate business for their low frequency, not ours. Those who have integrity know how to say, I'm sorry, and to also feel shame. Feeling shame because if I did something wrong, but if I didn't, and you're presenting to me your tone with your mannerisms and your casting of stone, yeah, that's not going to do anything at all to a person who's a higher self. It's an empowered inner child versus a hypervigilant one who hasn't gone to reparent themselves with someone like Patrick Tian or Terry Real. This is what I'm trying to say. So I've seen who is psychologically manipulable by the fancy woman and man in suit. They're not manipulable. They lead with defectiveness. They perform to this day with a shame button and a defective button that consistently has them feeling that they're not deserving of ease. This is the only thing that if they don't tune in to compassion and question, why am I irritated by it so much with the psych education, they won't get it. And because just the word compassion actually sometimes will trigger the shame. That's where we'll close this one out for today. But the sad story is that they'd have to understand the in-depth topics. I've seen these people in my courses as well, so it's not just on YouTube. These people are in courses. These people are mystics, and yeah, it's not funny. They're actively insecure. They have not achieved their whole self. They don't even know their higher self. Their pause self, doomsdayer, doer, hostile. The are we good? The ghost. We got attach, collapse, please appease. We got the shame, submissive. You got the ones with different types of states of self. I have also witnessed potential borderline, for sure, potential narcissist spectrums, and this is all beautiful people. They could be completely in bodies that are with good stress. Had they taken themselves by the age of 20 seriously enough to go to a therapist and get healed and to continue on it. Because again, I'm trauma attachment informed the last 3 years, but these researchers have been here for a while. Now, yes, YouTube and all of social media has just recently boomed with, thank goodness, all of this great information, which is why we're going to see a lot more people being able to embody spirituality, because they're going to be able to embody their true self, anchored in ventral. And so yoga, not yoga, it's not that. It's that people are aware of their well-being for real, which involves their heart and their gut and getting it aligned with a healthy self-worth, healthy self-soothing, healthy self-regulating, self-acceptance. Again, like Terry Real, who says, yes, I will be crooked, so will you, but I will be a functional adult. And I will present conversations, and I will be an empowered inner child, and I will not be projecting my past, and I will not be letting it live through me, and I will not be dating people or doing things that involve, let me go beat up Bill because he did this thing, okay? The people who want those mannerisms to continue to thrive in that very exact way are the ones who think that that's emotion versus understanding. That's your sympathetic. It's not the depth of your emotional plane. You're still actually reactive. So you have not mastered your mental, emotional, and physical planes. You have not even mastered your child parts yet. The sensations are still coming up, and that angry button is where Patrick Tiahan will say you grieve, pain, rage. If you ever want to forgive that which was done to you, it's once you're out of all of that that you can talk about what really your childhood was all about. Because at a certain point, when you're healed, you won't need to talk about it. And even if you do talk about it, it's in the absence of the charge. So every person, I don't know that story because, again, I don't come with that story. I come with a different one. But I do understand what Patrick Tiahan describes, and that's why I honor every single person who's healing seriously with someone versus the ones who are just yelling at each other and talking about it without actually doing the ventral, doing the work. But instead, they're just using the words. They have their story. They have their choices. It is one that I didn't think 4D, 3D would stick around, but I have noticed it. So every time ascension energies, like right now, they come up, there's going to be metabolizing whatever's ready to be metabolized. If you have a mindfully living, loving mystic or spiritual person, or just, again, person who is aware of their self, with reflection and some good information, wanting to be in their prefrontal and therefore understanding the difference between good stress and bad stress, and believing in the neuroscience, neurobiology, mental health findings to the point of putting into practice mindset, mindfulness, and mindsight. And that's with a good window of tolerance. When people don't have a window of tolerance, they will either go and take care of their mental health, because it will be something like that, or they flip-flop, and or they have trauma time and they live out that karma and that fate instead of becoming their own destiny by becoming conscious of being able to choose how to navigate. The Zen master, he does fate and karma because he got laundry, just a random example. So Spirituality, again, it means you being yourself, that whole self, higher self in ventral. People get here in different ways, but once they are there, self-help, personal development, spiritual growth, expansion, it's really awesome. The ascension energies for the 5D body type is what I talk about when it comes to non-traumatized, securely attached Maria. It's fun. I haven't had one of those moments. There's different emotions, and when I say fun, it's because the depth of knowing is that I'm going where I wanted to go. My soul and my spirit and me knows I'm where I'm wanting to go as an empowered feminine. I have never questioned. I've only known, I know some things, I don't know all things, and whenever I've had anything to say, I talk to God. And that was where, as I broke free, if you will, or just got out of the 4D bandwidth, I was actually, it was just humorous, to say the least. Made me think of a movie that I watched, and I laughed at myself the same way this person did. And I said, this is, wow. Oh my gosh, you know. And then I started to get attachment trauma informed, and that's where Patrick McNamara explained it as decentralization of the self. And I was like, okay, and the problem of consciousness, and you know, all the sciences people. So it's really fun to expand with sciences and spirituality. And we'll be back with more stories and experiences. So being yourself is a great deal. Come and join us, like, share, and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow. And please feel free if you have any questions or any topics, stories that you would want. I'm happy to share them with the sciences, spirituality. So that human element is what I get to try and bring to the best of my ability. Because actively, what your trauma charges are, whatever it is that's unresolved is yours. And that's what will typically be brought forth. You want to have a window welcome, like I said, the higher self, the capacity to navigate two sides of the brain and to bilaterally, vertically be able to mindfully tend to it, and on a field that is the flat, not the up and down, because that's prefrontal workout. That's the part that people don't understand. You're the one who gets to do it, and it is in the moment of it arising that you... So this thing happened to me once where I was having a chit chat, laughing. I get told something, I answer them, and it was in a way of they took it as rejection, and I'm getting yelled at like a dog, just blah, 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 blah. And as they do this, all this stuff comes up that's from nothing to do with them, because they say a word, that word triggers images that are from my experiences, and that's my nervous system now bringing every single bit of that past. And I know what it is, but I'm not going to bring it into the room. Even if I had been alone, I wouldn't have wanted to bring into the room. I might have cried, but I wouldn't have brought in necessarily the story. But in the meantime, I know self-regulation thanks to my panic attacks. And so I'm reworking this as it's happening. And I'm like, you know, and then I continue to repair this interaction by saying there's been a misunderstanding. Let me explain. And I'm not able to explain in our first interaction. I'm not able to explain in our second interaction the day after. Eventually, I'm reaching out to try and ensure that we can patch up that which was an unfortunate miscommunication, which I do. And that's where my rainbow baby, there's a lot of stories that I've shared already. So those who regularly tune in know it. And I will never forget, because I remember immediately knowing we have something we will be sharing and more that will help us expand from that spiritual to that personal perspective and growth, but it is a consistent opportunity. So I get to bring to Maria the opportunity of where I'm going to expand. The other individual and or individuals get to decide where they're going to expand. And the truth be told, well, it's always something beautiful to see when people take their mental health seriously. It's sad to say that when people don't have people around them that are intellectually and emotionally and mentally intelligent, that they're not supported in the way that would help them to actually be able to live a good life for real and not pretend. So ignorance is not bliss, and people who ignore healing trauma and going to therapists And that's where borderline personality, narcissism, all personality disorders are healable. And any idiot who doesn't believe it can, go and hang out with the other idiots, because there's somebody, her name's Kylie, and I look up to Kylie. She is somebody I respect, and she gets hate mail. And she is healing from borderline, or she's in remission, and she's healing from narcissism. And she's with her boyfriend. And so any of those people who want to keep talking to us about Lucifer, they can keep on pretending to think what they know. In the meantime, I know who's putting their best foot forward, and it's somebody like Kylie, and she's not the only one, and not some actual person who has a badge of whatever certificates they have, who twists data to their volition and says, my colleagues are against me. Can't you see? No, they don't heal from personality disorders. Really? I see. Yes. People who want a story that is from yesterday are the same ones who lack the education to know that evil is not something that we need to use philosophical or religious stories for, that we have plenty of smart therapists, neuroscientists, neurobiologists, and more that explain to you why you will need to choose to go and integrate your brain, to go and work with a therapist, to do sensory motor somatics, EMDR, chop parts work. And you don't have to integrate. This is why it's so sensitive that people who do know about it, when they go to these therapists, they say, do I have to do integration? And they're like, no, we don't have to. This is clinically dissociation people who understand, and that's because they want to get out of suffering. So the ones who seem to not want to get out of it are the ones like Zen Master, who make up some story of them having to suffer. And because they aren't in excruciating pain, apparently, they just like to use I'm going to say that you have to go through extreme pain in order to expand. I see. I'm sure you're sympathetic and dorsal vagal are having a good time as you continue to tire yourself out because you don't want to try that which is called secure attachment, non-traumatized, self-regulating in your ventral, because restored embodied people seem boring to you because you think that ventral energy and the oxytocin gene hormone is one emotion, versus understanding how to experience not only eustress, which is good stress, but also the depths of you in what is a mental, emotional, and physical mental plane that you are working on a surfboard and that you're having a good time in. You don't want to try something new because you're not used to, because you want a story that keeps you in the battlefield. 3D, 4D, it's teenagers. They like the fight response. No, they're used to it, like the fancy lady man in suit. Again, it's not Lucifer, it's cowards who don't take healing their trauma seriously. They'd rather use a story. So Doomsdayer, Doer, Ghost, and the Appeasers. We don't really do much about Cusco except for have a good time while you're distressed. Every ascension energy that comes about, it's going to keep on asking, do you want thoughts and emotions to be softer, or do you want to stay in the same level of tired out body? And so anyways, we'll be back again with more. In the meantime, let's support people who are healing trauma seriously. Let's welcome them. Let's talk about the good neuroscience, neurobiology information, and then allow us to know that the ones who don't like it, they don't like it. I mean, again, they'll bring in all of that which is theirs, and we can keep on having conversations. That's how it's done when you're a part of the 5D collective, because anything that comes out of any one of our mouths, food for thought, can be falsifiable. Again, we're not having, a panel of experts in an academic setting. An academic setting is a whole different thing because they got purpose, they got, funding, all that. And even that, I recently saw something. I'm going to let you all go now, but I recently saw Sabina. She tells a story that, Sabina, I honor you, man. That's great what she's doing. And I cannot even begin to tell you what email she got. And oh my, I'm not surprised. I'm definitely not surprised. So, but long story short, we'll be back with more. Thank you for stopping by. Like, share, and subscribe, and have a good one.